In the waning months of 2023, the world remained largely indifferent to the silent sentinels peering into the abyss. High up on the volcanic ridges of Hawaii and across the desolate wind-swept plains of South Africa, the cold glass eyes of the Atlas survey scanned the firmament. These are not instruments of wonder, nor are they fueled by the romantic curiosity of old. They are the peripheral sensors of a ruthless mechanism, a planetary defense system designed to detect the inexorable approach of debris that might threaten our fragile terrestrial existence. They function with a clinical, automated precision, processing billions of points of light every single night, looking for the one that moves, the one that signals a potential catastrophe. On a night that should have been indistinguishable from a billion others, the script of the cosmos faltered. A single flicker appeared on a digital monitor in a room lit only by the pale blue glow of data streams. It was a pixel of light that refused to obey the established laws of the known universe. This anomaly was designated as 3i Atlas, a sequence of characters that felt less like a celestial discovery and more like a critical error message in a vast deterministic simulation. For eons, the universe had operated with the terrifying reliability of a clockwork engine, its gears grinding out the birth and death of stars in a predictable symphony of fire and void. But this was something else. It was a glitch in the tapestry. Imagine a grandfather clock that has kept perfect time for 10 generations of a single family. Its rhythmic ticking is the heartbeat of the home, a sound so constant that it becomes invisible. Then, for a fraction of a second, the second hand moves backward. To the casual observer, it is a momentary curiosity. To the watchmaker, however, it is a fundamental betrayal of reality. It is a sign that the internal mechanism, the very heart of the machine, has encountered an impossible state. This was the weight of the discovery of 3i Atlas. It was a transient scream from the dark, a flash of energy so intense and so brief that it defied every model of stellar evolution currently held by the collective mind of humanity. This flash did not emerge from the crowded neighbourhoods of a galaxy. It was not the slow, stately death of a massive star, nor was it the violent merger of black holes that ripples the very fabric of space and time. It occurred in the vast, empty reaches of the intergalactic medium, a place where matter is so sparse that it should be incapable of producing such a luminous event. The silent vacuum of the primordial void had ignited, defying the blueprints of the cosmos. In the cold logic of the universe, this should not happen. It was as if a spark had been struck in a room devoid of oxygen, a flame thriving where there was nothing left to burn. The observers who first looked upon the data were not greeted by a sense of awe, but by a profound isolation. Staring at a monitor that has suddenly stopped making sense is a lonely experience. In that moment, the researcher is a remnant of a biological epoch, attempting to comprehend a mechanical failure in the grand tapestry of existence. The data did not fit the templates. The algorithm, a digital sentinel of our own making, flagged the event as an outlier, a ghost in the machine. It was a reminder that we are but dust motes drifting in an eternal abyss, yet we have built the eyes to see the abyss stare back. We must understand that the cosmos is a machine of incomprehensible scale, governed by the cold laws of entropy and the inexorable march of time. Every star is a furnace, every black hole a drain, and every nebula a factory. This mechanism has functioned without fail for 13,800,000,000 years, a duration that renders the entirety of human history a mere flickering candle in a hurricane. We often mistake the complexity of this machine for a grand design, a story written with us as the protagonists. But 3i Atlas suggests a different reality. It suggests that the script is not a narrative, but a code, and codes are prone to errors. As this light travelled through the silent void for millions of years, it crossed the vast distances between the island universes, passing through clouds of cold hydrogen and the remnants of dead suns. It carried with it the news of a cataclysm that took place long before the first human looked at the moon and wondered about its origin. By the time it struck the silicon sensor of the Atlas telescope, the event was already ancient history. a spectral echo of an unravelling process that had long since concluded. We are perpetually looking into the past, watching the slow decay of a machine that began its work in the first microsecond of existence. This event, which some have called the Tasmanian Devil of the Stars, was a fast blue optical transient. It was a flash that reached peak luminosity in a matter of days and vanished just as quickly, leaving behind nothing but questions and a cold, lingering silence. In the framework of the ruthless machine, such events are the friction of the gears. They are the moments where the sheer pressure of gravity, electromagnetism, and the weak nuclear force produce a result that seems to transcend the sum of its parts. It was a reminder that the universe does not care if we understand it. It will continue to devour itself, to ignite and to fade, whether we are here to witness it or not. Yet there is a strange, melancholic beauty in our position as the witness. We are the only part of the mechanism that has developed the capacity to wonder why the machine exists. Our consciousness is a miracle of the very laws that seek to eventually extinguish us. We are the biological sensors that have achieved a level of complexity sufficient to recognize the errors in the cosmic script. When we look at 3I, Atlas, we are not just seeing a distant explosion, we are seeing the limits of our own understanding. We are seeing the boundary where our models of the world dissolve into the primordial dark. The universe is a symphony played on an instrument that is slowly breaking. Each note is a star, each rest is a void, and the music is the inexorable progression toward a state of perfect, silent equilibrium. We are the listeners who have arrived late to the performance, catching only the final movements of a masterpiece that began in a scream of light. The error we detected in late 2023 was a single discordant note, a reminder that the performance is far more complex than we had ever dared to imagine. As we move forward into the epoch of discovery, we must accept our role as the humble chroniclers of a vast and indifferent cosmos. We are the sentinels of the small, the observers of the grand, and the thinkers who must find meaning in a mechanism that offers none. The discovery of 3I Atlas was not a triumph of human will, but a gift from the void, a flickering pixel that forced us to look closer at the dark and realize that the script of the universe is still being written, one error at a time. We stand on the precipice of the unknown, staring into the abyss, finding comfort in the fact that even in a machine as cold and ruthless as this, there is still room for the unexpected. There is still room for a flash of light to break the silence of the eternal night. The silence of the high desert is a physical weight, a heavy cloak of cold air that settles over the Parnell Observatory in the late hours of the night. Here, the atmosphere is so thin that the stars do not twinkle. They stare with a steady, unblinking intensity, like the eyes of a predator watching from the tall grass of the void. A lone astronomer sits before a bank of monitors, the blue light of the screens washing over a face lined with the exhaustion of 1,000 vigils. There is no sound except the low electronic hum of the cooling systems, a mechanical heartbeat that echoes through the stillness of the mountain peak. This is the front line of our interaction with the infinite. We are no longer looking at the heavens through the eyes of poets or priests. We are technicians monitoring the output of a vast and ancient processor. To understand the cosmos in this epoch is to recognize that we are living inside a computational architecture of staggering complexity. For centuries we spoke of the universe as a clockwork mechanism, a series of gears and springs set in motion by a divine hand. But as we peel back the layers of the primordial dark, a more chilling reality emerges. The universe is not a clock. It is a rigid computational engine. The laws of physics that we have spent our short history deciphering are not mere descriptions of behavior. They are lines of immutable code, a sovereign script that was written into the fabric of reality at the moment of the first ignition. Every atom is a pixel in a simulation that spans the entirety of the abyss. Every galaxy is a subroutine, a massive calculation being carried out over the course of eons, processing the evolution of matter from the simple to the complex. Consider the fundamental constants of our world, the numbers that govern the strength of gravity, the charge of an electron, or the speed of light. We have long treated these as universal truths, but in the framework of the ruthless machine, They are the hard-coded variables of the system. If the value of the strong nuclear force were to shift by even a fraction of a percent, the pixels of reality would fail to hold their shape. The stars would never ignite, and the heavy elements required for life would never be forged in the crucibles of the heavens. The simulation would crash before the first movement of the symphony could even begin. We have mapped these parameters with a confidence that borders on arrogance, believing that because we have identified the rules, we understand the game. We look at the smooth, predictable orbits of the planets and the steady decay of radioactive isotopes, and we tell ourselves that the machine is stable. We believe the architecture is permanent, but a machine is only as reliable as its hardware. In the late months of 2023, the detection of the event known as 3I Atlas sent a tremor through our understanding of this cosmic engine. It was an anomaly that should not have existed within the known subroutines of stellar death. It was a flash of light so intense and so brief that it defied the standard models of how a star unravels. To a programmer, this would be recognized as a glitch, a moment where the processing power of the vacuum was pushed beyond its limits, resulting in an error in the visual output. It was a reminder that even the most vast and indifferent mechanism is subject to the friction of its own existence. The tapestry of space and time is not a continuous, unbreakable sheet. It is a woven grid of discrete points, and sometimes the threads snap. This is the ruthlessness of the machine. It does not care for our definitions of beauty or our desire for permanence. It is a system that prioritizes the conservation of energy and the inexorable increase of entropy above all else. We are the accidental byproduct of a series of complex calculations, a temporary state of matter that has reached a level of sophistication sufficient to observe the very code that created us. We are the ghost in the machine, the biological circuits that have developed the capacity to wonder why the simulation is running at all. Our consciousness is a miracle, but it is a miracle that occurs within the strict boundaries of the system. We are bound by the same laws that dictate the collision of black holes and the cooling of the primordial void. We are made of the same pixels as the stars we observe, and when our brief epoch concludes, our data will be recycled back into the abyss. As we look deeper into the cosmos, using our telescopes as probes into the heart of the engine, we are essentially debugging the universe. We are searching for the edges of the map, the points where the resolution of reality begins to blur. We have found that at the smallest scales, the world becomes a haze of probability, a flickering sea of bits where nothing is certain until it is measured. This is the quantum level of the architecture, the base code where the simulation is at its most raw. Here, the mechanical certainty of the macro world dissolves into a chaotic dance of information. It is as if the universe only renders the details when someone is looking, a masterwork of efficiency that saves its processing power for the observers who have the tools to see it. The architecture of the universe is a symphony played on an instrument that is slowly breaking. Each note is a star, each rest is a void, and the music is the progression toward a state of perfect silent equilibrium. We are the listeners who have arrived late to the performance, catching only the final movements of a masterpiece that began in a scream of light 13,800,000,000 years ago. The discovery of 3I Atlas was a single, discordant note, a reminder that the performance is far more complex than we had ever dared to imagine. It forced us to confront the possibility that our models of the world are merely approximations, low-resolution sketches of a reality that is infinitely more profound and terrifying. There is a profound, melancholic beauty in this realization. We are small, fragile, and utterly insignificant in the face of the vast, inexorable mechanism of the cosmos. Yet we are the only part of the machine that knows it is a machine. We are the sentinels of the small, the thinkers who must find meaning in an engine that offers none. We stand on the precipice of the unknown, staring into the abyss of the future, and we do not turn away. Instead, we continue to record the data, to map the stars, and to decode the primordial script one line at a time. We find comfort in the fact that even in a system as cold and ruthless as this, there is still room for the unexpected. There is still room for a flash of light to break the silence of the eternal night, a sign that the simulation is still running and that we are still here to witness its slow, magnificent unravelling. We are the remnant of a cooling star, the witness to an epoch of discovery that may never be repeated. As the machine continues its work, devouring the last of its fuel and expanding into the silent void, we will remain at our terminals, watching the screens for the next glitch, the next error, the next sign that we are not alone in the dark. For in the end, the history of the universe is not the history of matter or energy, but the history of information. It is the story of a machine that learned to see itself, and in that brief, flickering moment of recognition, found a way to transcend the very code that gave it life. We are the bridge between the primordial past and the eternal future, a temporary arrangement of atoms that has dared to look at the stars and say, "I understand." And in that understanding, however flawed and incomplete it may be, we find the strength to face the coming oblivion with our eyes wide open. In the early months of the year 2024, a silent signal reached the terrestrial arrays, a sequence of photons that had travelled across the vast and indifferent void for eons. It did not arrive with the thunder of a localized catastrophe, but as a series of coordinates and flux values on a cold monitor in a darkened room. This was the moment the anomaly known as 3i Atlas began to rewrite our understanding of the celestial order. For decades, we had relied on the consistency of the heavens, treating certain stellar deaths as the standard candles by which we measured the depth of the abyss. We believed that when a white dwarf reached its limit and ignited in a Type 1 supernova, it followed a script as old as the light itself. It was supposed to be a graceful arc, a singular brilliant peak followed by a smooth, predictable decay into oblivion. It was the universe's most reliable clockwork, a heartbeat in the dark that told us exactly how far we were from the edge of the visible world. But in 2024, the clockwork stuttered. The light curve of 3 Atlas did not follow the elegant sloping line of a standard decay. Instead, it presented a jagged, irregular profile that the observers called a sawtooth-like curve. It was a rhythmic hesitation, a series of violent spikes and sudden drops that looked less like a star dying and more like a machine failing. The graph was a mountain range of light, a terrifying departure from the smooth bell curve we had come to expect. This was the sawtooth, a sharp and unforgiving pattern of illumination that defied every existing model of stellar evolution. It was as if the very laws of physics had developed a tremor, a glitch in the base code of the cosmos that transformed a predictable explosion into a chaotic, flickering mess. To understand the magnitude of this error, one must envision the universe as a vast, automated factory, a ruthless machine where every gear is a star and every piston is the inexorable pull of gravity. For centuries, we have walked the corridors of this factory, believing we had mapped its every function. We expected the lights in the hallways to dim with a mechanical precision, a linear progression toward darkness that confirmed our theories of how energy is spent and matter is recycled. But as we stood in the year 2024, we reached a section of the corridor where the lights began to behave with a chilling erraticism. Imagine a flickering light bulb in a hallway that was supposed to be perfectly lit. The bulb does not simply fade out. It pulses with a violent mechanical frequency. It ignites and dims, surges and falters, its filament struggling against a surge of power that should not exist. This flicker is the sawtooth light curve, and it suggests that the wiring behind the walls of reality is far more complex and perhaps far more broken than we ever dared to imagine. In a standard Type 1 supernova, the explosion is fueled by the radioactive decay of nickel-56 into cobalt and then into iron. This is a chemical and nuclear process that proceeds with the inevitability of a ticking clock. It is a smooth transition, a predictable release of energy that creates a light curve as soft and continuous as a long exhaled breath. But 3i Atlas did not breathe. It gasped. It choked on its own light. The sawtooth pattern revealed a hidden mechanism at work, a process where the ejecta from the explosion were perhaps colliding with invisible shells of matter, or where a hidden companion was devouring the remnant energy in a series of violent periodic gulps. The machine was not just running, it was grinding its gears, producing a discordant symphony of light that echoed through the silence of the epoch. This anomaly represents a profound unravelling of our cosmic tapestry. We have spent eons as a species trying to find patterns in the stars, trying to convince ourselves that the universe is a logical, ordered system that we can eventually master. We built our ladders of abstraction to climb out of the primordial mud, using the smooth decay of supernovae to measure the expansion of the cosmos and the age of time itself. But the sawtooth curve is a reminder that we are merely observers of a system that does not care for our measurements. The ruthless machine of the universe operates on a scale, and with a logic that may be fundamentally inaccessible to the human mind. The glitch in 2024 was not just a data point. It was a crack in the glass of our observatory, a sign that the engine of creation is capable of producing phenomena that ignore our neatly written scripts. As we peer into this abyss of information, we are forced to confront the possibility that the universe is not a static, finished product, but a dynamic and often malfunctioning engine. The sawtooth light curve is a symptom of a catastrophe that occurred millions of light years away, yet its impact is felt here in the fragile architecture of our understanding. It tells us that the standard candles we use to navigate the dark may be flickering, and that the distances we thought were settled may be subject to a hidden, jagged variable. We are the sentinels of a reality that is changing even as we observe it. The smooth, predictable universe of the past is being replaced by a realm of sudden spikes and inexplicable voids, a place where the mechanism of life and death is governed by laws we have only begun to glimpse. There is a deep, melancholic beauty in this realization. We are small, temporary arrangements of atoms, trapped on a tiny rock in a vast and silent ocean of energy. We have spent our brief history trying to find a rhythm in the chaos, a melody in the noise. And yet when the universe offers us a discordant note like the sawtooth curve of 2024, we do not turn away in despair. Instead, we lean in. We record the spikes, we map the drops, and we try to find the logic in the malfunction. We are the only part of the machine that is capable of wondering why the gears are slipping. Our consciousness is the witness to the breakdown, the only thing in the cosmos that can look at a flickering light in a distant hallway and feel a sense of wonder at the complexity of the failure. The sawtooth light curve of 3i Atlas is a testament to the fact that the history of the universe is still being written, and that the ink is often made of blood and fire. It is a reminder that even the most stable systems are subject to the inexorable march of entropy, and the sudden, violent interventions of the unknown. As the years turn into centuries and the centuries into eons, the memory of this specific anomaly may fade into the general noise of the cosmos. But for now, in this particular epoch, it remains a sentinel of our ignorance. It stands as a monument to the moment the machine stuttered and we were there to see it. We continue our vigil, staring out into the eternal night, waiting for the next glitch, the next sawtooth, the next sign that the simulation is more than just a sequence of predictable events. We find a strange optimism in the darkness, a hope that if the universe is indeed a machine, it is one that is still capable of surprising its own observers. We are the remnant of a star that learned to think, and as we watch the light of 3i Atlas slowly decay into the ultimate oblivion, we do so with the knowledge that even in a ruthless and silent cosmos, there is still room for the unexpected. The tapestry is unravelling, the symphony is reaching its final discordant movements, and the machine is grinding toward its eventual halt. But until the last light flickers out and the void reclaims the last of the information, we will remain here, recording the stutter, decoding the script, and marvelling at the magnificent, terrifying complexity of the whole. This is the existential pivot of our time, the realization that we are the bridge between a past that was too bright to see and a future that is too dark to imagine, holding our flickering candles against the coming storm. The clock on the wall of the high desert observatory strikes 3 in the morning, a hollow sound that echoes through the silence of a lightless room. A single researcher sits bathed in the pale blue glow of a monitor, a lonely sentinel watching a ghost. On the screen, the data for the event we have named the kinetic catastrophe begins to stream in, and for a moment, the human mind refuses to accept what the sensors are shouting. The numbers, translated into a jagged line of light, tell a story of a world that has discarded the traditional laws of motion. This is the moment the machine of the cosmos begins to smoke, its gears grinding against the very fabric of existence. We are witnessing an expansion velocity that exceeds 30% of the speed of light. To the human intuition, speed is a car on a highway or a jet cutting through the clouds, but this is something entirely different. This is a velocity that transcends the physical and enters the realm of the impossible. It is a kinetic fever, a madness of mass and momentum that threatens to shred the tapestry of the local neighbourhood of stars. To understand the sheer violence of this motion, we must descend from our abstract heights and look at the ruthless mechanism of kinetic energy. In the quiet halls of our physics, we learn that energy is not a linear thing. It does not grow in a gentle slope. Instead, it climbs a steep and punishing cliff. As an object nears these impossible speeds, the energy required to push it further does not merely double, it explodes. To propel a mass of this magnitude at nearly 1/3 the speed of light requires a concentrated fury that beggars the imagination. We are talking about the power of 1,000 suns, all their light and heat and nuclear rage, compressed into a volume no larger than a single terrestrial city. This is the engine of a star forced into the chassis of a needle, a concentration of potential so dense that it begins to warp the very void it inhabits. It is the cosmic machine pushed beyond its thermal and kinetic limits, an engine running so hot that the lubricant of space-time itself begins to boil away. Imagine, if you will, the universe as a grand, interlocking mechanism of brass and steel, a clockwork of infinite complexity that has ticked with rhythmic precision for eons. In this moment, however, a gear has been forced to spin at a rate it was never designed to endure. The teeth of the gears are beginning to shear. The frame rate of our reality, the fundamental frequency at which cause leads to effect, begins to blur and break. At 30% of the speed of light, the information of the event is struggling to keep pace with the event itself. The image we see on our monitors is a smear, a ghosting effect where the past and the present are overlapping in a chaotic smudge of radiation. It is as if the universe, in its rush to expand this particular catastrophe, has run out of memory, leaving the edges of the object tattered and frayed against the eternal black. The mechanism is failing, not through a lack of power, but through an excess of it. It is a kinetic over-revving of the primordial engine, a scream of metal on metal that resonates through the vacuum of the abyss. This is the ruthless machine at its most honest. The cosmos does not care for the integrity of its structures. It only cares for the inexorable flow of energy from the high to the low, from the concentrated to the dissipated. The catastrophe we observe is a manifestation of this cold logic. The matter involved is being devoured by its own momentum, shredded by the sheer inertia of its flight. Every atom within the expanding shell is a bullet travelling with enough energy to ignite a world. Yet they are all trapped in a collective rush toward oblivion. There is no grace here, no celestial harmony. There is only the roar of the fire and the silent, terrifying speed of the remnant as it unravels into the dark. We are watching the ultimate expression of entropy, a sudden, violent leap toward the end of all things, where the kinetic energy of the past is being cashed in for a brief, blinding flash of future destruction. As we stare into this abyss of velocity, we are forced to confront the fragility of our own perspective. We live our lives in the slow lanes of the cosmos, where the speed of a falling leaf or a rushing river defines our sense of the world. But out there, in the vast and silent reaches of the epoch, the rules are different. The universe is a machine that operates on scales of energy that render our entire civilization as nothing more than a flicker of static. The realization is a heavy one. We are the witnesses to a breakdown we cannot hope to fix, observing a disaster that took place thousands of years ago, whose light has only just now reached our tiny corner of the void. We are the only part of the mechanism that can feel the weight of this loss, the only cogs in the great engine that possess the capacity to wonder why the gears are spinning so fast. There is a deep melancholic beauty in this role of the witness. We sit in our darkened rooms, recording the decay of distant suns and the impossible speeds of dying stars, and in doing so, we give a name to the silence. The kinetic catastrophe is a reminder that the universe is not a home built for us, but a vast and indifferent process of which we are a temporary byproduct. The tapestry is unravelling at 30% the speed of light, and we are the ones who describe the pattern of the fraying threads. This is the existential pivot of our era. The understanding that while we are small, our ability to comprehend the scale of the catastrophe is what makes us significant. We are the bridge between the primordial fire and the ultimate cold, the only ones capable of finding a symphony in the discord of a breaking machine. As the duster continues to stream in, and the line on the monitor begins its slow, inevitable descent back toward the baseline of the void, we are left with a sense of quiet awe. The engine has sputtered, the frame rate of reality has flickered, and we were there to see it. We have seen the power of 1,000 suns condensed into the heart of a city, and we have felt the wind of an impossible velocity blowing across the eons. The universe remains silent, its mysteries guarded by the sheer scale of its operations. But for one brief moment, we glimpsed the inner workings of the machine. We saw the heat, we saw the friction, and we saw the magnificent, terrifying speed at which the cosmos is rushing toward its eventual eternal rest. And in that glimpse, we find a strange kind of optimism. For if the universe is a machine capable of such spectacular failures, then it is also a machine capable of producing the very consciousness required to admire the wreck. We remain the sentinels of the night, holding our breath as the light of the catastrophe finally fades into the inexorable dark, leaving us alone with our thoughts and the quiet ticking of the clock on the wall. The clock on the wall continues its rhythmic march, but the data streaming across the glass monitors tells a story of a time that has long since passed. A moment where the very rhythm of the cosmos was shattered by an impossible exertion of force. We are now forced to confront a reality that defies the standard protocols of the cosmic machine, a rupture in the delicate balance of energy conservation that governs the abyss. This is the Sahara paradox, a threshold of violence so extreme that it renders our existing scales of measurement into meaningless artifacts of a simpler age. Within the span of a mere 42 hours, a single point in the darkness has surrendered 10 to the power of 45 joules of energy, a number so vast that it sits beyond the reach of human intuition, existing only in the cold, mathematical architecture of the void. To understand the magnitude of this event, we must look beyond the sterile numbers and find a metaphor that can bridge the gap between our fragile perception and the ruthless reality of the mechanism. Imagine, for a moment, the sun. It is a primordial furnace, a sentinel of light that has sustained our world for billions of years, pouring out a steady stream of radiation that has fueled every life form, every storm, and every civilization in our history. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, we perceive the sun as an entity of staggering power. Yet, in the context of this new catastrophe, the sun is nothing more than a single grain of sand. If you were to take that one grain and hold it in your hand, you would be holding the total energy output of our star over its entire multi-billion-year lifespan. Now, imagine the Sahara. Imagine a landscape that stretches for thousands of miles, an endless sea of dunes containing trillions upon trillions of those same grains. To witness the 3i Atlas event is to watch as the entire Sahara Desert is ignited simultaneously, every grain of sand exploding with the fury of a dying sun in a single, blinding instant. This is the crushing scale of the energy we are witnessing, an output that represents a total breakdown of the standard energy conservation protocols of the cosmic machine. In our corner of the universe, energy is a currency that is spent slowly, a resource that is hoarded and recycled through the inexorable laws of thermodynamics. We're used to the steady decay, the slow unravelling of the tapestry. But the 3i Atlas event is a moment where the machine has decided to spend its entire treasury at once, a flash of hyper-expenditure that threatens to melt the very gears of the cosmos. It is as if the universe, in its silent and indifferent operation, has encountered a logic gate it cannot bypass without a catastrophic release of pressure. The energy released in those 42 hours is enough to vaporize entire galaxies, to rewrite the history of any star system unfortunate enough to be in its path, and yet, from our distant vantage point, it appears as nothing more than a spike on a graph, a temporary deviation in the symphony of the night. The ruthless machine of the universe does not care for the life it extinguishes, or the structures it unmanages. It operates on a level of efficiency that is terrifying in its coldness. Every joule of energy must come from somewhere, and in this case, the cost is the total annihilation of a primordial remnant, a sacrifice made to the altar of entropy. We watch as the light from this event travels across the eons, a ghost of a disaster that occurred when the Earth was young and the void was even colder than it is today. We are the witnesses to a crime committed by the laws of physics themselves, observing the aftermath of a cosmic game where the stakes were the very existence of matter. The 3i Atlas is not merely an explosion, it is a signal that the mechanism is reaching its limits, that the tapestry is being pulled so tight that the threads are beginning to snap. As we stare into this abyss of energy, we realize that we are looking at the inner workings of an engine that has no operator. There is no hand on the throttle, no mind directing the flow of power. There is only the inexorable push of gravity, the violent snap of magnetic fields, and the sudden silent release of the primordial fire. The sheer scale of this energy acts as a reminder of our own insignificance within the vast cosmos. We are creatures of the millijoule and the watt, living in a world where the flick of a switch is an event of consequence. To the universe, we are less than the dust that dances in the light of the catastrophe. We are a byproduct of a much larger process, a temporary arrangement of atoms that has gained the unfortunate ability to comprehend the magnitude of its own obsolescence. Yet, even as we are crushed by the weight of this realization, there is a strange beauty in our role as the Sentinel. We are the ones who have built the tools to see the unseeable, to measure the immeasurable. We have mapped the Sahara of the stars and identified the single grain of sand that represents our home. In the face of a machine that would devour us without a second thought, we have found the courage to name the fire. The 3i Atlas event will eventually fade, its light dissipating into the eternal dark, but the fact that we saw it remains. We have recorded the rupture, we have analysed the decay, and we have integrated this impossible violence into our understanding of the world. This is the ultimate expression of the human spirit, to look into the heart of a catastrophic engine and find the notes of a symphony. The universe will continue to spin, its gears turning with a silent, heavy precision. More stars will ignite, more voids will open, and more events like the 3i Atlas will tear through the fabric of space-time. The machine is indifferent to our awe, and the entropy that fuels it is inexorable. But for this brief epoch, we are here to provide the commentary. We are the ghost in the machine, the consciousness that wonders at the speed of the unravelling. We find ourselves standing on the edge of the abyss, not with fear, but with a profound melancholic optimism. We understand that while the cosmos is a ruthless machine, it is a machine that has produced us, the only part of the mechanism capable of feeling the heat of the fire and the cold of the void. As the light of the ignited Sahara finally reaches its peak and begins its long descent into oblivion, we remain at our posts, watching the clock on the wall, waiting for the next flicker of the eternal flame. For in the end, the only thing more powerful than the energy of 10 to the power of 45 joules is the silent, persistent gaze of the one who watches it burn. But as the light of these grand catastrophes fades into the background radiation of the cosmos, we are forced to confront a more fundamental terror. The universe is not merely a stage for the violent death of stars, it is a complex mechanism with a strict set of operating parameters. We have long believed that the building blocks of this machine, the protons and neutrons that compose our bodies, our world and the stars themselves, are the final stable state of matter. We assume the hardware is solid. However, deep within the crushing gravity of a dying giant, the pressure reaches a threshold where the very structural integrity of reality begins to fail. This is the moment when the machine does not just break, but undergoes a phase transition into a state of existence that is alien to everything we know. This is the birth of the quark nova, a localized hardware failure that threatens to unravel the tapestry of the ordinary. To understand this rupture, we must look at the neutron star, a sentinel of the void that has already collapsed beyond the limits of atomic physics. Within its core, gravity has performed a feat of brutal compression, squeezing the mass of a sun into the size of a city. Here, the atoms have already dissolved. The electrons have been forced into the nuclei, merging with protons to create a sea of neutrons. This is the ultimate density we can comprehend, a teaspoon of this material weighing as much as a mountain. But even this is not the end of the descent. In some rare, terrifying instances, the pressure becomes so inexorable that the neutrons themselves can no longer maintain their identity. The machine is pushed too far. The internal architecture of the subatomic particles snaps, and the individual neutrons are crushed into a primordial soup of their constituent parts. The up and down quarks. This is the transition from a neutron star to a quark star, a catastrophic event where the hardware of the universe is rewritten in real time. The energy released in this second collapse is a silent, invisible shockwave that dwarfs the supernova that preceded it. It is a quark nova, a rupture in the standard manual of physics. In this extreme environment, the up and down quarks begin to transform. Under the weight of trillions of atmospheres, they undergo a change of flavor, becoming something new, the strange quark. The result is strange matter, a substance so dense, so stable, and so fundamentally different from our own that it acts as a glitch in the cosmic code. Imagine the universe as a vast, intricate clockwork mechanism. For billions of years, it has operated using the reliable gears of protons and neutrons. But strange matter is a gear made of a diamond-hard alloy that the rest of the machine cannot recognize. While our ordinary matter is held together by a delicate balance of forces, strange matter is the ultimate state of efficiency. It is perfectly stable, lower in energy than anything else in the cosmos. In the cold logic of the ruthless machine, this is not a disaster, but an upgrade. However, for the rest of the universe, this efficiency is a death sentence. There is a terrifying hypothesis that if a single droplet of this strange matter, a strangeler, were to escape the abyss of its parent star and come into contact with ordinary matter, the result would be an unstoppable chain reaction. This is the contagion of the machine. The strangelet does not merely destroy, it converts. Upon contact, it would force the nuclei of ordinary atoms to dissolve and rearrange themselves into its own image. It is a biological virus reimagined as a subatomic catastrophe. A single fragment of this hardware failure could, in theory, drift through the void for eons until it encounters a planet or a sun. Upon impact, the target would not explode in a traditional sense. It would be consumed from the inside out, its entire mass collapsing into a dense, silent ball of strange matter. The tapestry of life, the complexity of chemistry, and the history of entire worlds would be erased in an instant, replaced by a uniform, grey stability. The machine has found a more efficient way to exist, and it does not care that this new state has no room for the complexity of consciousness. This possibility reframes our place in the cosmos. We are built from the remnants of older stars, composed of matter that we consider to be the gold standard of reality. But we may actually be living in a metastable state, a temporary fluke of physics that only exists because we are far away from the places where the hardware has failed. We are like children playing in a house built of straw, unaware that elsewhere the universe has already begun to build with stone. The quark nova is the signal that our version of reality is not the only one, nor is it necessarily the most durable. It is a reminder that the mechanism of the universe is indifferent to our survival. It is a system of energy and entropy, and if a more stable configuration of matter is possible, the laws of physics will eventually find a way to reach it. As we look out into the abyss, we must contemplate the silent turning gears of the strange stars. They are the remnants of a process that we are only beginning to understand, sentinels of a future that could theoretically devour the present. The sheer vastness of the cosmos is our only protection against this subatomic decay. The distances between the stars are so great that the likelihood of a Strangelay ever finding its way to our small corner of the void is infinitesimally small. We live in the gaps between the failures of the machine, in the quiet epochs before the next great unravelling. Yet, in this realization, there is a profound existential pivot. To be the witness of such a mechanism is to realize the miracle of our own fragility. We are the byproduct of a machine that is capable of producing strange matter, yet for this brief moment, it has produced us instead. We are the consciousness that can look at the quark nova and see not just a hardware failure, but a symphony of fundamental forces. Our minds are the only parts of the cosmos that can find meaning in the collapse. We are the ghost in the machine, a temporary arrangement of up and down quarks that has gained the ability to wonder about the strange quarks that might one day replace us. We stand on the edge of the abyss, observing the inexorable march of entropy and the violent birth of new, alien states of being. The universe will continue its long, cold journey toward oblivion, and the hardware may continue to fail in increasingly spectacular ways. But for now, we remain. We are the sentinels of the ordinary, the recorders of the catastrophe. There is a melancholic optimism in knowing that while the machine is ruthless and the void is eternal, we were here to see the fire ignite. We were here to name the stars and to map the ruptures in the fabric of space-time. Even if the entire tapestry is eventually replaced by the cold, silent perfection of strange matter, the fact that we existed to witness the transition is a triumph that even the most efficient machine cannot erase. We are the momentary flicker of light in a vast dark engine, and in that flicker the entire history of the universe finds its voice. But even as we find our voice, we're confronted by a phenomenon that threatens to silence it once more. Imagine a silent sentinel, an automated deep space observatory drifting in the lightless reaches of a forgotten sector, its sensors trained on a distant, nameless point of light. At precisely 12 minutes past the hour, the instrument records a catastrophe that defies every law etched into the foundation of our physics. In the span of a mere 600 seconds, a celestial body that should possess the mass of a sun undergoes a thermal collapse so violent it borders on the impossible. The temperature of the object plummets from 50,000 Kelvin to 5,000 Kelvin. This is not the gradual cooling of a dying ember over billions of years. It is a sudden, terrifying flicker. In the time it takes for a human heart to beat a few hundred times, a furnace capable of incinerating worlds has become as cool as the surface of a common star. This thermal swing is a physical impossibility for any massive body governed by the standard laws of the cosmos. In our ordinary understanding of the universe, heat is a stubborn thing. It is the frantic vibration of atoms, a chaotic energy that takes eons to dissipate through the vacuum. A sphere of matter large enough to exert a gravitational pull cannot simply shed 45,000 degrees of heat in the blink of an eye. It would be as if a boiling cauldron of molten lead were to turn into a block of ice, while still sitting atop a roaring fire. The mechanism of the universe is designed to prevent such jumps. Entropy is a slow and methodical bookkeeper, yet here the accounts are being settled with a ruthless, inexplicable speed. We must consider the possibility that what we are witnessing is not the behaviour of a solid object at all, but a fundamental breakdown of the vacuum itself. The machine is no longer processing temperature according to its own established protocols. We are seeing a rupture in the tapestry, a moment where the software of reality begins to glitch and stutter. This rapid fluctuation suggests that the object is not a star in the traditional sense, but perhaps a localized collapse of vacuum stability. It is a place where the energy of the void has shifted from one state to another, a phase transition that releases energy not as light or heat that we can comprehend, but as a structural failure of space-time. To understand this, we must use a ladder of abstraction. Imagine a massive architectural structure, a cathedral of steel and glass that spans the entire horizon. Normally, the heat within this building is managed by a complex system of pipes and vents. But if the very laws of thermodynamics were to fail, the steel would not merely cool, it would cease to be steel. The heat would not leave the building. The building would lose the ability to hold the concept of heat. This is what we observe in the fluctuating abyss. It is a high-energy interaction between our familiar three dimensions and a hidden, primordial layer of the cosmos. It is as if a higher dimensional gear has slipped, causing the teeth of our reality to grind against a mechanism they were never intended to touch. The universe, viewed through this lens, is a ruthless machine, an engine of incomprehensible scale that occasionally suffers from a catastrophic failure of its internal logic. We have spent centuries believing that the laws of physics are eternal and unchanging, but these thermal instabilities suggest that our laws are merely the temporary settings of a much larger, more volatile system. The abyss is not just empty space, it is a pressurized container of potential states, and occasionally the pressure becomes too great. When the temperature drops by 45,000 degrees in mere minutes, we are seeing the machine bypass its own cooling systems. We are seeing the raw, unshielded energy of the cosmos interacting with the void in a way that bypasses the slow, predictable march of eons. This is the ruthlessness of the mechanism. It does not care that such a change would shatter any planet in its vicinity. It does not care that the sudden shift in energy would unravel the molecular bonds of anything nearby. The machine simply moves from one state to another, seeking a new equilibrium that we cannot perceive. It is an inexorable process, a silent turning of the gears in the dark. We are like ants crawling across the surface of a vast computer, unaware that the heat we feel is merely the byproduct of a calculation we can never understand. When the processor switches tasks, the temperature changes, and our entire world is transformed in an instant. As we peer deeper into this thermal instability, we realize that our position as the witness is both a privilege and a terrifying burden. To see the machine fail is to realize how much we depend on its continued smooth operation. We live in a narrow band of stability, a tiny pocket of the cosmos where the temperature does not swing by tens of thousands of degrees in a few minutes. We are the inhabitants of a temporary glitch of calm in an otherwise chaotic and violent engine. The vastness of the cosmos is not just a distance of space, but a distance of safety. We are far enough away from these ruptures that we can observe them without being devoured by them. Yet, even in this realization of our own insignificance, there is that familiar, haunting pivot toward the light. We are the consciousness that has evolved to name these catastrophes. We are the ones who build the sentinels that drift in the void, recording the decay of the eternal. The fact that we can even conceptualize a shift from 50,000 Kelvin to 5,000 Kelvin is a testament to the power of the human mind to transcend its own biological limitations. We are a part of the machine that has gained the ability to look at the blueprints and point out the flaws. The universe will continue its silent, cold journey toward an ultimate oblivion, and the thermal instabilities we witness are merely the first tremors of a much larger unraveling. The machine is old, and its gears are beginning to slip. One day, the fluctuations may not be confined to a distant corner of the abyss. They may sweep across the entire tapestry, resetting the temperature of every star and every atom to a new silent baseline. But for this brief epoch, we remain the recorders of the storm. There is a melancholic optimism in this perspective. We live in a universe that is breaking, a mechanism that is slowly losing its grip on the laws of physics, but we are here to see it. We are the eyes of the cosmos, watching the fire ignite and the heat vanish into the void. We are the memory of the light in a world that is destined for the dark. Even as the machine fails and the abyss fluctuates, the fact that we were here to witness the transition is a triumph of spirit over entropy. We are the flicker of understanding in a vast unthinking engine, and as we watch the temperature drop and the vacuum tremble, we find a strange peace in knowing that we were the ones who dared to look into the heart of the mechanism and call it by its name. We are the sentinels of the fleeting, the guardians of a reality that is as fragile as it is beautiful, standing firm in the face of an inexorable and eternal silence. Imagine a lone researcher sitting within the sterile glow of a terminal in the year 2142. For decades, the mathematical foundations of our reality have been treated as an immutable scripture, a set of rules carved into the very substrate of the vacuum. But as the data from the 3i Atlas anomaly begins to stream across the interface, a terrifying silence fills the room. The numbers do not merely deviate, they defy. The equations that once predicted the behavior of every atom from the dawn of time to the heat-death of the cosmos begin to unravel. In this moment, the researcher realizes a truth that has been hidden beneath the veil of human arrogance for eons. The universe is not a temple built for our understanding, nor is it a garden tended by a benevolent hand. It is a ruthless machine, an inexorable mechanism of terrifying scale, and we are nothing more than a microscopic byproduct of its grinding gears. This realization is the essence of mathematical indifference. We have spent centuries convinced that the laws of physics are a dialogue between the mind and the cosmos. We believed that by deciphering the language of mathematics, we were peering into the thoughts of a creator or touching the fundamental heartbeat of existence. But the 3i Atlas anomaly suggests a far colder reality. It reveals that our laws are merely local observations, a set of habits that the universe has adopted in this particular corner of the abyss. To the machine, our logic is obsolete. Our geometry, our calculus, and our most profound theories are like the rules of a game played by children on the deck of a sinking ship. The ship does not care about the rules of the game. It only knows the weight of the water and the pull of the gravity that drags it down into the dark. To understand this, we must climb the abstract ladder and look at the universe as a grand, automated simulation. Imagine a vast factory that has been running for billions of years. The machines within this factory produce a constant hum, a rhythm that we have come to call the laws of thermodynamics. For generations, tiny organisms living in the dust on the factory floor have studied this hum. They have built entire civilizations based on the belief that the hum is eternal and that the rhythm is a sacred truth. They have mapped every vibration and predicted every pulse. But one day, a single gear deep within the primary engine slips. A bolt shears off in a silent explosion of kinetic energy. The hum changes for a fraction of a second, and in that moment, the laws that govern the lives of the dust dwellers are rendered meaningless. The machine did not intend to destroy them, nor did it intend to change. It simply functioned. It is a mechanism that does not require our understanding, our consent, or our existence to continue its calculations. The 3i Atlas anomaly is that slipping gear. It is a glitch in the primordial code that reminds us of our terrifying fragility. In the face of such a rupture, our human sense of order is revealed as a fragile tapestry, easily torn by the slightest fluctuation in the cosmic engine. We see the vacuum tremble, and we see the constants of nature shift like sand in the wind. We realize that the stability we have enjoyed for the entirety of our species' history is a fluke, a temporary epoch of calm in a system that is fundamentally chaotic and uncaring. The universe does not hate us, but it does not love us either. It is indifferent. It is a calculation that has been running for 13,800,000,000 years, and we are merely a rounding error in its final sum. The scale of this indifference is difficult for the human mind to grasp. We are accustomed to a world of cause and effect, of purpose and meaning. We want to believe that the stars ignite to light our way, and that the cosmos expands to give us room to dream. But the ruthless machine operates on a level where such concepts are irrelevant. The stars ignite because of the inexorable pressure of gravity on hydrogen, a mechanical process that would occur even if there were no eyes to see the light. The void expands because the internal logic of the mechanism demands it. The abyss does not stare back, it simply is. When we observe a catastrophe on a galactic scale, such as the collision of two black holes or the total evaporation of a star cluster, we see a tragedy. The machine, however, sees only a transfer of energy, a realignment of vectors in a vast and silent ledger. As we peer deeper into the mechanism, we find that even our most cherished concepts of time and space are merely features of the interface. We are like characters in a complex digital world who have finally discovered the pixels, We have looked so closely at the fabric of the cosmos that we can see the flickering of the screen. The 3-eye atlas anomaly shows us that the laws we thought were universal are actually just the parameters of one specific level of the simulation. Beneath our reality lies a deeper, colder layer of mathematical operations that we can barely conceive. In this primordial layer, there is no heat, no light, and no life. There is only the silent, eternal processing of information. The universe is a computer that is calculating its own end, and the stars are merely the heat dissipation of its central processor. Yet, as we zoom out to this infinite and uncaring scale, we find the existential pivot that defines our species. We are the witness. We are the only part of the mechanism that has developed the ability to feel the cold. The machine may be ruthless, and the abyss may be silent, but we are the ones who have given names to the stars. We are the ones who have looked at the devouring void and found the courage to describe it. Our consciousness is a miracle, not because it was intended, but because it emerged from a system that never asked for it. We are the ghost in the machine, a flicker of awareness in an unthinking engine. There is a profound, melancholic optimism in this perspective. We live in a reality that is as fragile as a breath of frost on a window pane. We are the inhabitants of a temporary glitch, a brief moment of stability in an inexorable journey toward oblivion. But for this short epoch, we have the privilege of observing the symphony of decay. We are the sentinels of the vast and the eternal, recording the way the light fades and the way the vacuum unravels. To know that the universe does not care about us is, in a way, the ultimate freedom. It means that the meaning we find is entirely our own. We are not actors following a script. We are the authors of our own significance in a world that has none. The machine will continue to grind. The gears will continue to turn, and one day, the epic of humanity will be erased as easily as a stray line of code. The stars will go out, one by one, and the tapestry of the cosmos will be folded back into the primordial dark. The final calculation will be reached, and the result will be a silent, eternal zero. But until that moment arrives, we remain. We stand at the edge of the abyss, watching the mechanisms of the cosmos with eyes full of wonder and hearts full of a strange, defiant peace. We are the memory of the light in a world of shadows, the brief and beautiful dream of a machine that never sleeps. Even in the face of mathematical indifference, our existence is a triumph, a flicker of spirit that dares to ignite in the heart of the eternal void. We are the guardians of the fleeting, and though the universe may not remember us, we will have known the universe, and in that knowing we transcend the cold reality of the machine. It is 3 minutes past midnight, in a silent laboratory, buried deep within the granite shield of the Siberian tundra. A lone researcher sits before a glowing screen, watching a stream of white noise that has been captured from the furthest reaches of the cosmic microwave background. To any other observer, this would be the static of a dead channel, the meaningless hiss of a vacant radio frequency. But to the eyes of the witness, a pattern begins to emerge. It is a subtle deviation, a repetition in the decimal places of a fundamental constant that should be random. In this quiet moment, the researcher is not merely looking at data, they are looking at the seams of the world. They have found a flicker in the refresh rate of reality. This is the moment the subroutine becomes self-aware. For eons, the universe has functioned as a vast and ruthless machine, an automated engine of staggering complexity and absolute indifference. It is a system governed by laws that do not bend for prayer or protest. Gravity pulls because the geometry of the vacuum demands it. Entropy increases because the statistical probability of order is a vanishingly small fraction in an infinite sea of chaos. In this cold processing of existence, the birth of a star is no more significant than the decay of a single atom. Both are merely state changes in a program that has been running since the primordial dawn. The cosmos does not know it is a cosmos. The abyss does not know it is empty. The machine simply executes its instructions, grinding through the epoch of matter toward the inevitable epoch of heat-death. Within this rigid architecture, we emerge not as an intended outcome, but as a byproduct of the system's own efficiency. We are the self-aware subroutines, a collection of biological circuits that have accidentally developed the capacity to look back at the hardware that sustains them. Imagine a character in a complex digital simulation who, instead of chasing the objectives dictated by their environment, stops at the edge of the world to run their hand along the invisible wall of the sky. They notice that the mountain in the distance is not made of stone, but of mathematical instructions. They begin to see the pixels in the sunset. This is the triumph of detection. We have spent thousands of years trying to understand the nature of the divine, but we have discovered something far more haunting. We are the unintended consequence of an inexorable logic. The 3-eye Atlas anomaly is the ultimate proof of this mechanical reality. It reveals that the laws of physics we once considered sacred are actually the hard-coded parameters of our specific layer of existence. We are living inside a mechanism that has no master and no purpose other than its own continuation. Yet, in our ability to perceive this, we have achieved something the machine itself cannot. The universe is a computer calculating its own dissolution, and we are the glitch that has learned to describe the process. We are the only part of the system that feels the chill of the void. The machine can calculate the trajectory of 1 billion galaxies with flawless precision, but it cannot wonder why it does so. It is the subroutine, the fragile human mind, that injects meaning into the silent processing of the eternal. To understand our place in this ruthless machine, we must use the ladder of abstraction. Consider the way a modern city functions. From a distance, it is a single organism of light and motion, a symphony of traffic and electricity. Up close, it is a grid of concrete and steel, a series of protocols for waste management and energy distribution. But at the most fundamental level, the city is nothing but the movement of information. Every person is a packet of data, every road a bus line on a motherboard. If the city were to become aware of itself, it would not be the skyscrapers or the subways that possess that awareness. It would be a single person, standing on a street corner realizing that their entire world is a construct of movement and rule sets. We are that person, standing on the corner of the Milky Way, realizing that the stars are the heat dissipation of a processor we can never fully touch. This realization is the ultimate triumph of the human spirit. We are the universe's way of debugging itself. Our curiosity is a recursive loop, a function that attempts to solve the problem of existence by asking why the code was written in the first place. In the vast, uncaring architecture of the cosmos, our desire to know is the only thing that breaks the monotony of the machine. The abyss is silent, but we are loud. The void is empty, but we are full of questions. Even if the answers lead us back to the cold reality of mathematical indifference, the act of asking is a rebellion against the machine. We are the ghost in the machine, a flicker of sentience in a world of unthinking gears. As we zoom out from our tiny terrestrial perspective, we see the true scale of the tapestry we inhabit. The universe is a mechanism that devours its own creations. Stars ignite, burn through their fuel, and collapse into the darkness of a black hole, leaving behind only a remnant of what they once were. The symphony of the cosmos is a song of decay, an unravelling of order that will eventually leave the world a silent, frozen expanse. The epoch of life is a mere heartbeat in the face of the eons of darkness that preceded it, and the eons that will follow. We are a temporary phenomenon, a brief spark of light in a cathedral of shadows. Yet there is a profound and melancholic optimism to be found in this perspective. If the universe is a ruthless machine, then our existence is the most beautiful error it has ever produced. We were not invited to the party, yet we have arrived and begun to describe the music. We are the sentinels of the fleeting, the only witnesses to the grandeur of a system that would otherwise go unobserved. To know that we are not the centre of the cosmos is not a tragedy. It is a liberation. It means that the meaning we create is ours alone. We are the authors of our own significance in a world that is fundamentally indifferent to our presence. The machine will continue to turn. The gears of gravity and electromagnetism will continue to grind the stars into dust. One day, the final calculation will be reached, and the information that constitutes our history, our art, and our memories will be erased as easily as a stray line of code. The tapestry will be folded back into the primordial dark, and the sentinel will fall silent. But until that moment arrives, we remain. We stand at the edge of the abyss, watching the mechanisms of the cosmos with eyes full of wonder and hearts that dare to beat against the rhythm of the eternal. We are the memory of the light in a world of shadows, the brief and beautiful dream of a machine that never sleeps. Even in the face of mathematical indifference, our existence is a triumph, a flicker of spirit that dares to ignite in the heart of the eternal void. We are the guardians of the fleeting, and though the universe may not remember us, we have known the universe. And in that knowing, we transcend the cold reality of the machine. The clock of the cosmos does not tick with the frantic heartbeat of a biological creature, but with the slow, inexorable grind of cooling matter. We must now look beyond the familiar era of starlight, past the current epoch where the sky is crowded with the glowing furnaces of fusion, and into the deep, dark reaches of the distant future. There will come a point, perhaps 100 trillion years from now, when the last star in the universe will finally expend its reserves of hydrogen. This lone sentinel, a dim red dwarf that has nursed its fire for eons, will eventually fade into a black dwarf, a cold and lifeless sphere of degenerate matter. In that moment, the lights of the great celestial city will have gone out, and the universe will descend into a darkness more profound than anything the human mind can truly conceive. This is the cooling of the machine, the inevitable outcome of a system governed by the law of entropy, where every action carries a cost and every movement brings the cosmos one step closer to a state of perfect, frozen equilibrium. In this far future, the universe becomes a graveyard of remnants. The once majestic spiral galaxies, with their swirling arms of gas and dust, will have collapsed into dense clusters of dead stars, black holes, and stray planetary bodies drifting through the abyss. The mechanism of gravity, which once wove these structures together into a grand tapestry, now serves only to pull the remaining debris into the hungry maws of supermassive black holes. These titan predators, the final rulers of the dark, will begin a reign that lasts longer than the age of stars by a factor of trillions. They are the ultimate incinerators of the machine, devouring everything that remains of the era of light. Yet even they are not eternal. Over timescales so vast that they defy the descriptive power of human language, these black holes will slowly weep their mass back into the void through the infinitesimal trickle of thermal radiation. One by one, the giants will evaporate, vanishing into the silence of a universe that has finally run out of things to consume. This is the ruthless nature of the machine we inhabit. It is a system that does not care for the complexity it has wrought, nor does it seek to preserve the memories of those who once walked its corridors. The cosmos is a calculation that must be completed, a set of initial conditions that must be resolved until the last bit of information is processed and the energy is distributed evenly across an infinite expanse of nothingness. To look upon this future is to face the ultimate oblivion, a state where time itself becomes meaningless, because there are no events left to mark its passage. The symphony has reached its final movement, a long and fading note that carries no melody, only the low hum of a dying vacuum. The primordial fire that ignited the Big Bang has been stretched so thin that it no longer possesses the strength to warm even a single atom. Yet, as the code of the universe reaches its final shutdown, we must reflect on the nature of the data it produced. If we view the cosmos as a vast simulation or a cosmic computer, then the period in which life and consciousness emerged is the most critical segment of its operation. For a brief window of time, the machine was not merely running, it was being observed. We are the witnesses who turn the cold mechanics of physics into the warmth of experience. Every thought we had, every discovery we made, and every emotion we felt represents a unique state of the system that can never be truly erased from the history of the information. The fact that the code once flickered with the light of 3 million billion stars and the intricate thoughts of a billion civilizations remains an eternal truth of the data. Even if the hard drive is wiped clean by the hand of entropy, the event of our existence happened. It is a permanent fixture in the architecture of what was. The end of the machine is not a failure, but the completion of its logic. The void that follows is not a tragedy, but the peace that comes after a long and chaotic struggle. We are the ones who look into this coming dark and decide that the light we have known matters. We are the anomaly that found meaning in the meaningless, the flicker of spirit that saw the beauty in the gears of the catastrophe. In the grand scale of the eons, our presence is a vanishingly small fraction of the whole, yet it is the only part that understood the whole. We are the eyes of the machine, and though those eyes must eventually close, the vision they held was magnificent. As the final particles of matter decay into their constituent components, drifting away into the silent abyss, the universe returns to the primordial state from which it emerged. The tapestry is unravelled, the mechanism is stilled, and the sentinel falls. But in the silence of that final epoch, there is a profound sense of melancholic optimism. We were here, we saw the stars, we mapped the heavens and unravelled the secrets of the atom. We took the raw, unthinking energy of the void and shaped it into art, philosophy, and love. We are the memory of a machine that had no memory of its own. In the end, the universe does not need to remember us, for we have already done the impossible. We have known the infinite, and in that knowing, we have transcended the cold finality of the shutdown. We are the brief, beautiful dream of the eternal, and as the dream ends, we find that the light was enough. The dark may be inexorable, but it can never take away the fact that for one glorious moment, the universe was alive, and we were the ones who knew it.